Hey guys, so I saw something kind of interesting today, which is this Reddit post on the Genshin Impact sub, I assume. And it's basically claiming that the Inazuma story was borked because the writers basically left. And now we're just left with a bunch of newer writers. Now, none of this is exactly 100% confirmed, but it would explain why the Inazuma story seems so disjointed, or at least as I explained in a previous video, pretty much entirely worse than the previous chapter in Liyue. So I'm gonna read this and I'll give my thoughts on it. You don't really have to believe this, but in my opinion, I do think this is somewhat true because there's no reason why the story should have changed unless there were some internal changes. So let's get to it. So this post is made by Eatable Parfait. I can't really read the Chinese that well, but I'm going to assume he or she is acquainted with the Chinese community, and that's why he or she knows what is going on. So, to preface, I think most of the main story, was always cheesy and badly written. In the prologue, we had a rather standard story of what functions as a pure, innocent boy redeeming his wayward friend Venti trying to cure Dvalin. Ah. Yeah, but even though it is simple, I don't think it was bad. As he says, there was nothing groundbreaking, but at the same time, they play things rather safe. Yeah, that's why when I talk about Mondstadt, I always think that it was good, but it wasn't anything groundbreaking. It was just the prologue. And it's there to get us acquainted with Mondstadt as a whole and with Tevat as a setting. But at the same time, they play things rather safe. Then Liyue, we had a big setup for a clash between the Adepti and the Qixing. In essence, a point where the old world and its values are at odds with the new. This was resolved by an actual Deus, literal Deus Ex Machina, when the Fatui released an ancient god, forcing them to once again work together. And everything gets resolved within 5 minutes of dialogue. Well, I don't think it is a literal Deus Ex Machina because we don't really spend any time with the Qixing at all. The Adepti and the Qixing. We spend most of our time with the Adepti, right? We don't really spend any time with the Qixing, and it's not made to be. I wasn't expecting a clash with Adepti and the Qixing because we spend so much time with Adepti. I just assumed that the story was going somewhere else. In fact, the entire way through the story, I thought the Qixing were just some randos. Like, well, what did you actually expect? It's not like Inazuma where Kokomi and Goro and Tepe are set up as something you should be expected to empathize with because they're actual characters. Well, except Goro, he's not an actual character. He just has like some graphics, and we're supposed to like him because he's going to be playable. It's not like in Liyue where what are the Qixing characters we're supposed to get to know? They're not really there. So we spent the majority of our time with Adepti and John Lee, right? So the story was heading somewhere else the entire time. It wasn't setting up. It was setting up a sort of conflict between the Adepti and the Qixing, but as the audience, we're not supposed to empathize with the Qixing that much. It's not the same as Inazuma, in my opinion. So even then, when not accounting for the world building aspect and world quest, the Inazuma Archon quest was, in my opinion, remarkably worse. Yes, that is true. Even if you account for all of the other things in the story that were not that great, they were still, in my opinion, consistent with the story they were trying to tell for the world they were building. It was consistent with a lore that was outside the main Archon quest. That is not the case with Inazuma. So yeah. I won't go over the details since there are a plethora of threads listing all the wrong pacing, plot holes, payoffs with little setups. I'm here to talk about why I think that's the case. Alright, so some of you might already know this, but Mihoyo's lost some of their best writers around late last year, notably the guy who wrote the very well received and very competently written Renti and John Lee's story quest, Up and Left. Took some other writers with him and set up his own shop. Apparently, some of the theories afterwards were completed with stories afterwards were completed with his incomplete notes. What likely happened was that Mihoyo hired a new team of writers to help work on the storyline. I I don't know if this is the case, and I would like to think it's true because it explains why the second chapter was so disjointed. Like, you had the first act, which was amazing, which was quite amazing in my opinion because of the visionless quest line, and that let us know about how the visions work. And then you have Act 2, which kind of just derails, and Act 3, which just completely unravels, and didn't really make much sense at all. So I'm hoping they improve. I don't know if it was due to change of writers, but it certainly makes sense to me. Now, being an avid fan of cinema, I notice how movies tend to be real shit and nonsensical when writers or directors quit halfway and the studio brings someone new midway. That's not always the case, in my opinion. Yeah, it does make things worse, but sometimes it does make things better, especially if the former writers were shit. You can see recent examples in films such as Solo or Justice League. Well, my example is Star Wars, right? Basically, each movie had its own director, which was fucking terrible. Even though I did enjoy The Last Jedi, by the way. Um, I enjoyed the second movie. I will say that. But for but then it just completely derailed in the third movie again, right? Because the second movie was setting up for something for that never happened in the third movie. They just kind of retconned it. It was a complete mess. When you bring in a new writer or director to finish someone else's work, the results are usually messy. Right, the first movie then was setting up for something else either, and the second movie was setting up for something else, and then the third movie just kind of retconned the second movie. I believe that's the same deal with Genshin's Inazuma arc. The newer people brought in did not quite have the same vision. I don't know what their vision was. Like, obviously, that might be too harsh, right? Because if they were brought in to finish the story, then obviously they only have some kind of outline to work with. So it's not their vision, of course, and they have to work with someone else's vision. Consequently, I felt like there was a noticeable decline in the quality of writing afterwards, of course. I don't know if this is because they were short on time to learn the materials, or they were not used to writing in the themes exhibited in the game, or their creativity was put in check by meddling from above. However, what kept getting better and better was the world building through quest lines and exploration. Yes, that's exactly what I was saying. The quest lines outside of the Archon quest, like right now, I'm doing the Neko quest line in the bottom island of the Sarah Islands, right? And it's just so funny. Like you're working for a cat and you're building this statue. At least that's what I'm doing right now, and it's just so interesting. And I also like the quest line where you took care of the filth for for the Inu filth like remnant. That was interesting as well, and I thought like the Kazari how she left in the end was pretty fitting. Basically, almost everything outside of the main Argon quest were great. I thought they were better than Liyue quest. That's the thing. Even though I talked about how Liyue's main Archon quest was better than Inazuma's, I thought Liyue's exploration which was also pretty good, was actually inferior to Inazuma's. Inazuma has just so much stuff going on, and it's just so dense. It's just full of stuff to do. In Liyue, once I did the main Archon quest, I had no motivation to go and keep exploring. In Liyue, I was pretty much done. I just went back to Liyue to collect materials for leveling up. That was about it. Still, to this day, I still only have about 78 to like 85% completion rate in most of the regions in Liyue. But for Inazuma, I already have like 90 in most of them, or close to 90. And the side quests in Liyue as well, I found they were just okay. And while Inazuma's, it was a different sense. It was a different feeling, right? In Inazuma, everything is kind of has this melancholic feel, while in Liyue, everything is more normal-ish. Things aren't as sad. In Inazuma, you have an entire island where the people just left because of the Tatarigami energy, and they all grew sick. And there's a bunch of sad stories related to it. And in Liyue, I don't know if there's anything similar. I think the closest Liyue ever gets is like the nine pillars, right? I thought that was actually really weird because it gave me this Zelda-esque feeling more so than any of the other regions. You have to go and put these stones in these nine towers, and then you go into a dungeon and you fight a bunch of bosses and you get some lore. That was super Zelda-esque feeling. So it was still good, but not as good as the side content in Inazuma. However, what kept getting better? Yeah, we already read that. There were a ton of side quests in Inazuma that were very nice written, agreed. For example, the Sakura cleansing questline, the Iwakura questline, or even the entirety of Yashiori Island exploration. Hell, this update brought nice questlines like the daily quest line with Neko. Agreed. Even the ones that were less serious were also hilarious. Yeah, I thought the food stuff, even though they were annoying, the food quests, they were okay. They were annoying, but I found them humorous in general. But competently written. The entire quest with the missing son and the bandits. Yeah, the missing son one was pretty hilarious too. I was like I had this what the fuck face by the end of it. I don't think that the same people who wrote World Quest are the same ones working on the main quest, which is an issue because the difference in writing will only get more apparent unless the main story gets better too. And it turns out that they're the same team, then their talent is not being utilized in making the recent Archon quests. Yeah, it's ultimately just speculation. Like there's always in game development, you always have these fan theories by the fans, right? That there's two different teams. There's the team working on the good stuff, and there's the team working on the bad stuff. But is that really true? I'm not sure. You tell me. I don't work at Mihoyo. I don't think that the same people who yeah, the difference will only get more apparent. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Many people have voiced their discontent on the quality or lack thereof of the new Archon quest, so hopefully Mihoyo might give the newer team more freedom and time to write quality stories. If that is the case for the badly written Inazuma script, Dylan didn't read, it's because of newer writers. Right. I really would just like to be at Mihoyo right now and see what's exactly going on internally. Why did the older writers leave? If they did leave, how did the newest writers screw up? If they did screw up, which they certainly did. You know, Opie is just referencing some unofficial Chinese forum post. Yeah, keep in mind, guys. This is just speculation. Ultimately, it's just the source is just some Chinese forum post, but it does make sense. No official statement about it whatsoever. Yeah, no duh, because they're not going to tell you that a shitty storyline was written by a new writing team, right? It's not just not going to happen. I enjoyed Sacred Sakura Cleansing Ritual more than Archon Quest and Inazuma, to be honest, and BGM while doing Ritual was so relaxing. Yes, the Watatsumi Island is my favorite subregion in the entire game, and the quests there they were interesting, and especially the Enkonomiya thing, setting it up for the next major region we're going to. That's interesting too. Watatsumi is my favorite region to explore, and I enjoy the side quests as well, but it's my least favorite region in terms of main Archon quests. Because let's be honest, we just went around and fought a bunch of trash mobs for the main Archon quest, and then we left. That's all Watatsumi was in the main Archon quest. It served its only purpose was to get us to the Fatui, and the Fatui's only purpose was to get us to fight Raiden Shogun. So yeah, that's basically it. Like and subscribe if you didn't like it. If you didn't like my content, like and subscribe. So I hope Inazuma's story gets better in the future. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it.